Imagine a world where the stakes are sky-high and a nation's airspace becomes a battleground of international tension. What if a leader faced arrest simply for daring to travel? This is the precarious situation unfolding as U.S. President Trump pursues an audacious peace initiative, aiming for a face-to-face negotiation with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Hungary. But as Trump coordinates this unprecedented meeting, the intricate web of international politics threatens to unravel at any moment. Poland has drawn a hard line in the sand, declaring its territory a no-fly zone for Russia's leader. If Putin attempts to enter Polish airspace, he risks interception and arrest due to an outstanding warrant from the International Criminal Court. The chilling words of Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski resonate with gravity. He stated, "I cannot guarantee that an independent Polish court would not intervene and escort such a plane to The Hague." This is not just a simple travel ban, it's a proclamation of intent that sends shockwaves through the Kremlin. With Poland firmly positioned, the question looms, what alternatives does Putin have to navigate to Hungary? The borders are tightly guarded, and any direct flight over Ukraine, which shares a border with Hungary, would set off alarm bells. Ukrainian forces are poised for action, ready to intercept any Russian aircraft entering their skies. Slovakia, another nearby option, is similarly unwelcoming, as Putin would risk entering Poland's restricted airspace to reach it. Direction shifts further southeast as Romanian and Serbian airspace come into play. However, Romania stands firmly as an EU and NATO ally, complicating any request for safe passage. The entire situation reflects a precarious dance of diplomacy, where one misstep could lead to a scandalous international incident. What about other nations? Although Poland has taken center stage, Romania and Bulgaria share the same legal obligations to the ICC, one that could potentially criminalize Putin's transit through their territories. They may not explicitly state their plans for Putin, but the implications are clear. Following Poland's lead, the likelihood of granting a Russian flyover diminishes significantly. Amidst this maze of international law and political posturing, the European Union finds itself at a crossroads. Following a blanket ban on Russian aircraft at the onset of hostilities, EU members now wield the power to make individual decisions regarding Putin's requests for air passage. While some might argue for a diplomatic route towards peace, the question remains, is this meeting truly for dialogue, or is it a dangerous gamble that risks sparking further conflict? With Hungary poised to be the host of this contentious meeting, the stakes escalate. Although the Hungarian government has assured that Putin won't face arrest upon arrival, the challenge lies in getting there in the first place. Amidst this heated backdrop, Poland's fervent stance against Putin sends ripples through diplomatic circles, leaving a perplexing dilemma. If the meeting is to occur, what route will Putin ultimately take? The unfolding narrative is deeply woven with tension, as every country factors into this game of chess played at 30,000 feet. What happens next? Will Putin dare to challenge Poland's uncompromising stance, or will he opt for a roundabout journey through uncertain skies? As this international saga continues, the world watches, and answers remain tantalizingly close yet frustratingly out of reach. Each move carries the weight of history, pressing us to consider, what is peace worth when leaders play on the line? The urgency surrounding the potential summit between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin in Hungary has plunged into chaos. With Poland firmly declaring its airspace a no-fly zone for the Russian leader, the question looms large: how will Putin navigate around this blockade? If this meeting proceeds, it seems likely that a detour will be necessary. But what options does the Russian president have? Flying over Ukraine, which shares a border with Hungary, is out of the question. Putin knows full well that Ukrainian jets and air defenses would immediately target him the moment he crosses that boundary. Slovakia, another neighboring country, also poses a significant hurdle. Accessing Slovakia would require navigating Polish airspace, which is strictly off-limits for Putin. So, what are his alternatives? Moving southeast, Putin could contemplate passing over Romania or Serbia. However, Romania is a NATO member, making approval of any flight trajectory through its airspace highly doubtful. And although Serbia might seem like a potential passageway, landing in Hungary would still necessitate traversing Bulgarian airspace first, which is yet another NATO country. Yet, Poland is not alone in its cautious stance. Countries like Romania and Bulgaria are members of the International Criminal Court, ICC, just like Poland. They may not initially commit to directing Putin's plane away, but they possess the legal obligation to arrest him under ICC regulations if he crosses their borders. The implications are enormous. Meanwhile, the European Union has allowed individual nations the discretion to lift the flight ban on Russian aircraft, cementing uncertainty regarding this potential journey. But, how far will EU states go to uphold peace talks in light of these tensions? Many view the summit as a pivotal moment for dialogue. Yet, with Poland taking the lead and denying access to Putin's aircraft, could other nations follow suit, risking sizable diplomatic fallout? As we navigate these treacherous waters, one thing remains clear: what path can Putin carve that won't lead him straight into the grip of justice? The tension mounts as we ponder the international stakes at play in this geopolitical chess game. In a world teetering on the brink of conflict, one man's audacious attempt at peace pits global powers against each other. The story unfolds as former U.S. President Trump takes a bold step, orchestrating a direct meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Hungary. But tensions rise when Poland, a pivotal player in this high-stakes drama, declares it will intercept Putin if he dares to fly over its airspace. The stakes couldn't be higher, and lives hang in the balance. Just over a month ago, Poland made headlines for downing Russian drones entering its airspace. Now, its government has issued a stark warning to Putin: his flight through Polish territory is out of the question. The foreign minister delivers a chilling message: there's a real chance Putin could be arrested under an international criminal court warrant if he tries to cross their borders. Can you hear the echoes of diplomacy unraveling? The fear and uncertainty ripple through international relations. Citing his own government's mandate, Polish Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski hints that the door to The Hague might swing wide open if Putin attempts a flight across Poland. This threat looms heavy, one that might not just deter the Russian president but redirect his entire journey. But if Poland is an absolute no-go zone for him, what alternative routes lie ahead? Each possibility seems fraught with peril. One option would be to fly through Ukraine, but there's no chance he will do that. Ukrainian forces would be waiting to engage him the moment he enters their airspace. What about Slovakia? Putin would still have to contend with Poland or Ukraine, rendering that route improbable. The southeast route through Romania or Serbia poses its own challenges, primarily due to their NATO memberships. Yet, intriguingly, the reactions of these nations remain uncertain. The intricate web of international politics reveals something startling: each country, except for Poland, holds the sacred right to decide who crosses their airspace. Romania and Bulgaria, while appearing to provide avenues for passage, also carry the ICC's weight upon their shoulders. What if all these nations, aligned with the ICC, act in unison to deny him entry? As Poland's threat gains traction, the narrative grows thicker. Meanwhile, reactions from Moscow depict Russia's fury. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov lashes out, accusing Poland of terrorism for denying Putin safe passage. The irony is striking: while Poland defends its airspace, Russia had just infringed upon it with drones. The hypocrisy is almost comic, revealing the twisted nature of this geopolitical chess game. Yet under the surface, Poland is merely upholding its obligations under the ICC. Faced with a warrant for Putin's arrest, they tread a treacherous line of legality and political maneuvering. It raises a crucial question: if Hungary guarantees Putin's safety upon arrival, how can he reach there without facing the fate laid out by Poland? With these layers of intrigue building, Washington weighs the implications of Trump's meeting with Putin. Is this summit a path towards reconciliation, or a trap that could doom both leaders? The anticipation thickens as the world watches. Hungary's ambiguous stance deepens the mystery. Are they siding with Russia in a game driven by self-interest, or are they merely facilitating a delicate dance of diplomacy? As the backdrop of the ICC unfolds, the very essence of justice collides with the harsh realities of international politics. With various nations prepared to issue their verdicts at a moment's notice, the question looms large: what will happen if Putin attempts to fly over desperate nations unwilling to welcome him? The stakes couldn't be higher, and as the clock ticks towards the proposed meeting, the world awaits the outcome of this unprecedented rendezvous. Will Putin rise to the occasion, or will he be ensnared in a web of international law? As the stage is set, one thing is clear: the air is thick with tension. In a high-stakes game of international diplomacy, tensions soar as U.S. President Trump pursues peace between Ukraine and Russia through an astonishing proposal for direct discussions with Vladimir Putin in Hungary. But there's a twist: as plans are set in motion, one country stands in defiance: Poland. They declare they will intercept Putin's aircraft if he attempts to cross their skies. The dramatic implications of this ultimatum could derail Trump's ambitions for dialogue. Imagine the tension in the air. The stakes are more than just talks, they are about accountability and justice. Poland, emboldened by its recent commitment to safeguard its airspace, has made it crystal clear: no Russian flights will be tolerated. What does this mean for Putin? With a warrant for his arrest issued by the International Criminal Court hanging over his head, crossing into Poland could signify not just a political blunder but a personal peril. Radoslaw Sikorski, Poland's foreign minister, drives his point home during a radio interview, casting a foreboding shadow over the potential summit. "I can't assure you that a Polish court wouldn't take action against any aircraft," he warns. The mere suggestion resonates deeply: Putin's chance at peace is now intertwined with the very real threat of arrest. If Poland turns its airspace into a no-fly zone for the Russian leader, how will he secure safe passage to his pivotal meeting? The intrigue deepens as Sikorski raises the question: if Poland is off-limits, what alternate routes could Putin possibly consider? Options dwindle as the risk of interception looms large. Flying over Ukraine is out of the question, given the air defenses desperate to thwart him. Slovakia, Romania, and Serbia all present formidable obstacles too, potentially jeopardizing his safety and security. Amid this uncertainty, there's murmurs from the European Union about individual states deciding on Russia's flight permissions. While an overarching ban on Russian flights remains, could member states pivot their stance in the pursuit of peace? There's ambiguity in the air. What will Hungary, a country seemingly welcoming yet bound by the same ICC obligations as Poland, ultimately decide? Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister, lashes out, accusing Poland of terrorist acts for denying Putin safe passage. Irony fills the atmosphere as Russia has recently violated Polish airspace with drone incursions. Is this hypocrisy? Nations have a sovereign right to control their airspace, and allegations from Russia only serve to mask their own provocations. As discussions of the ICC arise, a vital question lingers: what power does the court hold? Founded to prosecute the most grievous international crimes, its influence rests heavily on the cooperation of its member states, ensuring compliance with its arrest warrants. By definition, Poland's obligation to arrest Putin is unwavering, a burden that adds to the poetic irony of this unfolding saga. What does this mean for the future of Trump's meeting with Putin? The atmosphere hangs heavy with uncertainty as Hungary grapples with its stance. As they move away from ICC obligations and offer potential sanctuary to Putin, can they truly guarantee his safety when the driving issues of war crimes and accountability loom so large? With so many questions unanswered and high tension simmering, the world watches and waits. Will Putin dare to set foot in Hungary under fire? Will the cries for justice reach ears willing to listen? As the clock ticks down, all eyes are locked on the flight paths above Europe, where international destinies may hang in the balance. In a tense twist of international diplomacy, former President Trump is attempting to broker peace between Ukraine and Russia. His bold strategy involves a direct meeting with President Vladimir Putin in Hungary. However, this ambitious plan hangs by a thread. Poland, positioned on the route Putin must take, announced it will intercept his flight and arrest him if he dares to cross into its airspace. Imagine being on the edge of your seat, hearing the rumble of jets overhead. The fate of a summit hangs in the balance as winds shift ominously around these leaders. Poland's firm stance has raised the stakes, with Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski declaring that should Putin venture near, he may very well find himself in handcuffs, handed over to the International Criminal Court for war crimes. The tension is palpable, Putin's ambition to reach Hungary complicates an already fraught situation. Just over a month ago, Poland had a serious confrontation with Russian drones violating its airspace. Now, it has drawn a line in the sand. Sikorsky ominously implied that Putin could be arrested, fueling speculation about the safety of the air routes he must take to reach Hungary. With every passing second, the anticipation builds. What route could Putin possibly take now that Poland has firmly closed its skies to him? The immediate options appear daunting. Redirecting through Ukraine is suicidal. Ukrainian forces are poised to respond aggressively if he dares to cross that border. Furthermore, Slovakia, directly neighboring Hungary, is also an impractical choice since access would inevitably mean traversing either Poland or Ukraine, or both. Could he sneak through the southeast via Romania or Serbia? Romania's NATO allegiance and Bulgaria's EU membership make those pathways nearly impossible too. Poland's position sets off shockwaves across the continent. They are merely enforcing the obligations binding under the Rome Statute as ICC signatories. If captured, it's clear, the consequences would be seismic, not only for Russia but for the intricate web of European diplomacy. As discussions unfold, rumors concerning Hungary's tacit acceptance of Putin inject an additional layer of intrigue to the international chess match. Hungary, originally an ICC member but now re-evaluating its commitments, represents a potential safe haven for Putin, if he can just get there in the first place. The curtain rises on a complex, ever-evolving situation. Will Putin take the risks necessary to engage in diplomacy, or will he retreat in shame? The atmosphere thickens with uncertainty, drama, and the weight of historical significance. Each country waits, and with every moment that passes, the tension mounts. Will this summit become a catalyst for peace or a new chapter of conflict ignited by one man's flight? Only time will tell as this modern political saga unfolds. Poland's duty to arrest Putin is clear under the ICC's Rome Statute. It's bound by international law to act if he enters its skies. This ties back to the ICC's grim charges against Russia's leader. No good news for him. An arrest warrant has hung over Putin for about 2.5 years. That warrant became official on March 17, 2023. The ICC demands Putin's arrest for brutal war crimes during his Ukraine invasion. Can you imagine the cold grip of fear as families are torn apart, snatched from warm homes, hearing cries that echo in the night? Under Putin's orders, the ICC claims Russia illegally deports and transports Ukrainians, including children since the war's start. Ever felt the chill of a child's small hand slipping away? This is a war crime, and Putin carries personal responsibility. He's charged for direct involvement in those deportations, and for lax control over his forces, allowing such atrocities. Can he claim ignorance now? Even if he pretends not to know, unlikely, his failure to reign in the military makes him guilty. The horror is real. No doubt lingers about these crimes by Putin and his allies. Picture the scratchy reports, the smell of fear in June, when The Guardian revealed up to 35,000 Ukrainian children missing, held in Russia or occupied zones. They were yanked from orphanages, ripped from parents' arms, or orphaned by soldiers' gunfire. Imagine the acrid scent of smoke from shattered villages. Yet, 1,366 brave kids returned home, thanks to the organization Bring Kids Back. But Russia stonewalls, refusing to release the rest, and accuses Ukraine of faking it all. What else is new? Russia's denial rings hollow. Its reaction to the ICC warrant, in April 2023, matches that defiance. Beyond the children, at least 2.5 million Ukrainians displaced by Putin's invasion. That adds weight to the charges, painting a picture of suffering that burns in the gut. Pause. The pain deepens, as questions swirl. Will Putin face trial, or dodge justice forever? What if his plane dares those skies, clawing toward Hungary like a trapped beast? Stay tuned, for the twist that could shatter this standoff. In a tense global atmosphere, the stakes have never been higher for diplomacy. The quest for peace between Ukraine and Russia has reached an astonishing climax as the former U.S. president attempts to negotiate a face-to-face meeting with Vladimir Putin in Hungary. The implications of this summit are monumental, but one significant obstacle looms large: Poland's vow to intercept Putin's aircraft if he flies through its airspace. The very thought is shocking. Could a major world leader be arrested mid-flight? Poland's foreign minister, Radoslaw Sikorski, made a chilling assertion: if Putin dares to enter Polish airspace, the consequences could be dire. Not only is Poland asserting its stance against Russian aggression after the severe drone incursions, but the notion of Putin facing arrest under an International Criminal Court, ICC, warrant adds another layer of complexity. Imagine the tensions rising as Sikorski warns that an independent court might compel action against the Russian leader. This is not just talk, it's a clear and present danger painted vividly in a chilling scenario for the Russian president. But what options does Putin even have to reach Hungary? Direct routes are fraught with peril. The airspace of Ukraine is off-limits, where hostile forces would aim to bring him down the moment he crosses the border. Meanwhile, Slovakia presents a similar predicament, mandating flights over Poland first. If he dares to consider Romania or Serbia, the looming threat of arrest still hovers, as these nations are ICC signatories, just like Poland. With each potential route closing in on him, tensions rise like an electrifying storm. Meanwhile, there's an unsettling quiet from Hungary, which has tentatively assured Putin of safe passage. Why would a nation, also bound by ICC mandates, take such a divergent route? Is Hungary's apparent leniency a strategic play in a greater game? Sikorski and Poland are keenly aware of the precarious balance of power, but with every maneuver, the question remains: how will the EU respond to potential peace talks that involve a figure they seek to prosecute? As speculation flourishes about Putin's travel plans, an unexpected twist arises. While Poland stands resolute in its commitment to arrest him, other nations are left grappling with their stance, torn between diplomatic ties and international law. Will they waver, or will the precedent set by Poland galvanize them to act? Navigating Putin's potential flight could reveal the cracks in alliances that run deep, especially as the EU opts for a hands-off approach regarding member states' decisions about allowing his passage. Suddenly, the scene is set for a high-stakes game of chess in the sky. With every political chess move causing unease, Lavrov's sharp rebuke of Poland showcases a desperate Russian regime, grasping at straws. They claim Poland's decision to deny safe passage is nothing short of terrorism, yet the reality is that a nation's right to protect its airspace is absolute. Yet the irony persists. Russia itself, under the weight of ongoing drone incursions, finds its position increasingly indefensible. How can Lavrov accuse another of violating airspace when Russia's own actions have sparked the fire? This stark contrast raises questions of legitimacy and right versus might, as Poland asserts its duty under ICC mandates to enforce international laws governing war crimes, a forefront in this turbulent narrative. Now, the world watches with bated breath as the possibility of Putin's arrest looms. If he were to enter Poland, what would ensue? The response could define not just the future of one nation but also the global landscape. Can an arrest warrant be executed? With the ICC's jurisdiction under scrutiny, and Poland firmly positioned on the front lines, the question lingers: what ramifications could this act unleash, not only for the players involved but for peace in a war-torn region? As the clock ticks down toward the summit and uncertainties mount, the political theater hosts its stars, each move beckoning potential clash, humility, and power. The script is unwritten, the outcome uncertain. What will be the final act in this gripping international saga? Every nation must weigh its actions carefully, as history could judge harshly. Could the International Criminal Court finally lay its hands on Putin? An arrest of the Russian leader could hinge on his potential entry into a member nation's territory. Poland has made it clear, if Putin flies over its airspace, he risks apprehension. With a warrant issued by the ICC hanging over his head, the stakes couldn't be higher, but can this situation tilt the balance of power in the ongoing conflict? The scenario of a potential arrest is not just a distant threat but a pressing reality. Should Putin set foot in Poland, the country is obligated to arrest him under its commitments to the ICC. Though the ICC lacks its own police force, it relies on its member nations to enact these warrants. Interestingly, countries like Sudan have allowed leaders with ICC warrants to traverse their borders freely. But could Poland really turn the tables on Russia? If Putin were to be detained, how would the arrest unfold? Picture a swift operation where Polish authorities intercept his airplane, forcing it to land. International law grants Poland the authority to take such action, especially when pursuing a captured warrant under ICC jurisdiction. Yet, the intrigue doesn't simply lie in the arrest itself, but in the aftermath. What would follow if Putin were apprehended? Experts warn that Putin's isolation might further embolden him. Military analyst Sean Bell suggested that the warrant, while justified, could hinder negotiations in the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. The fear is that such pressure would harden Putin's resolve and shift his focus towards escalating the warfare. If this theory holds true, the effort put forth by Trump to engage Putin in dialogue could be jeopardized by Poland's firm stance against him. While Trump aims for a peace summit in Hungary, Warsaw firmly opposes any arrangement allowing Putin's passage, further complicating attempts at negotiation. As tensions rise, the question lingers: how will this situation resolve itself, and will it transform diplomatic efforts in the ongoing conflict, or merely exacerbate them? As we examine this dynamic landscape, we must ask, what will it take for genuine peace to break through the fraught barriers of international law, national sovereignty, and personal convictions? In a world teetering on the brink of conflict, both the actions of individual nations and the responses of powerful leaders will ultimately shape the course of history. Picture a world on the brink, where one man's words from the past echo in the chaos of today. Just before this, we saw how Radoslaw Sikorski's bold warning from Poland puts Trump's Hungary summit with Putin in grave danger, blocking potential peace talks over Ukraine due to the ICC warrant and Russia's airspace intrusions. How seriously will Putin risk arrest to reach that meeting? Bracing winds howl through the Hungarian plains, the scent of diesel fuel from aircraft engines stinging the air, as memories of fiery explosions from Ukrainian attacks flood back unbidden. That flashback? It's like the rumble of artillery fire pounding my chest, the acrid smell of scorched earth clinging to every clothing fiber, a tactile reminder of shattered lives in a war that never seems to end. Has Putin really been dragging these negotiations out since they flared up in early 2025? The BBC speculated back in 2023 that the ICC warrant wouldn't sway Putin's brutal grip on Ukraine. And guess what? That's played out exactly, with Russia pounding Ukraine relentlessly, unbothered by calls for his arrest. But imagine if Poland or another nation snatches him from the skies. What if Russia retaliates? Experts say they won't. One insight comes from Olga Lautman, a senior fellow at the Center for European Policy Analysis. She told Newsweek that in a hypothetical arrest by an ICC member, Russia would back off. Why? Because NATO's might looms large. Most ICC states ready to grab Putin are NATO allies, like Poland. A Russian hit back against them could drag the nation into a full-blown NATO clash. Would the US join? It's debatable. Remember, the US isn't an ICC signatory, not bound by its rules. If Putin gets hauled in, the US might argue the arrest was invalid. Even claim it sparked a war, freeing America from NATO's obligation to defend its allies under Article 5. This shifts everything. The old threat of NATO reprisal fades, possibly weakening the alliance's iron grip. Now, circling back to Sikorski's fiery words, that Poland will seize Putin should he dare cross its skies. What twisted paths might Russia's leader choose to dodge this trap? Will European skies erupt in total mayhem if he pushes through? The air thickens with tension. Every flap of a jet wing against the wild winds feels like a heartbeat racing toward disaster. How long before this powder keg ignites, reshaping the world forever? And what shocking revelation awaits in the shadows of international law? In a tense geopolitical landscape, an ambitious summit between former U.S. President Trump and Russian leader Vladimir Putin looms on the horizon, set against the backdrop of a complex web of international diplomacy. The meeting was to take place in Hungary, a nation within the European Union, anxiously balancing relations with both the West and Russia. However, an unexpected disruptor has emerged: Poland. The Polish government publicly declared its intention to intercept and arrest Putin if he dares to enter its airspace, a striking move that sends shockwaves throughout diplomatic circles. This ultimatum is rooted in a broader context of Poland's staunch opposition to Russian aggression and its obligations under the International Criminal Court, effectively placing Putin on notice that his travel plans may lead to dire consequences. Imagine the tension in the air as whispers of this declaration ripple through the halls of power. Poland's foreign minister, Radosław Sikorski, cryptically hinted at the potential for a court-ordered arrest. His words linger, filling the air with apprehension as the international community considers its implications. What if, he speculated, an independent Polish court were to make a decision to escort Putin's plane straight into custody? The notion is chilling, drumming up vivid images of military jets soaring through the skies, engines roaring, and diplomatic tensions escalating. As speculation grows, the looming question persists: if Poland remains a no-fly zone for Putin, how can he possibly make it to Hungary? The options appear increasingly limited. Flying over Ukraine would be tantamount to inviting catastrophe, as every Ukrainian defense system would be primed and ready to respond. Slovakia presents a complex scenario, where flight paths would likely intersect with Polish airspace. Meanwhile, seeking passage through Romania or Serbia poses its own risks, as both nations are also bound by their obligations to the ICC. News reports intensify the drama. The European Union has formally stepped back, allowing individual member states to decide whether to grant Putin safe passage. This unforeseen approach raises eyebrows and fuels speculation about whether the potential for peace talks outweighs the principles of accountability that the ICC upholds. The EU's stance is a calculated gamble, one that could either catalyze a breakthrough or invite further chaos. In a startling turn of events, the planned meeting appears to be unraveling. Reports indicate that Trump has opted to delay any in-person engagement with Putin, potentially spurred by Poland's ultimatum. This unexpected decision raises questions about the state of diplomacy between Washington and Moscow and whether the specter of Putin's arrest has cast a shadow over any hopes for peace. As this unfolding drama continues, one grander narrative emerges: the profound realization that peace, if achieved, would necessitate unyielding security guarantees. The UK has pledged support, with troops on standby should the need arise. In an electrifying speech, Defense Secretary John Healey emphasized readiness, declaring that a coalition is prepared to uphold any peace agreement. The stakes have never been higher as nations grapple with the complexities of war and diplomacy. As the world watches, what might actually happen if Putin attempts a flight path over Poland? The echoes of Sikorski's warning resonate, sending a clear message: international law has teeth, and for leaders like Putin, it may mean a turbulent sky ahead. In a dramatic twist of events, the relentless effort for peace between Ukraine and Russia hinges upon an unprecedented meeting, one that could change the course of history. President Trump aims to negotiate a ceasefire, making an audacious proposal to meet with Vladimir Putin in Hungary. However, turbulence looms over this diplomatic initiative, as Poland has firmly declared it will not allow Putin's jet to enter its airspace. The stakes have never been higher, and an unexpected confrontation could be imminent. Entering the fray, Poland's foreign minister, Radosław Sikorski, issued a stark warning. He stated unequivocally that if Putin dares to cross into Polish territory, he may face arrest under an international criminal court warrant. Sikorski's words reverberated through the airwaves, casting shadows over the proposed summit between Trump and Putin. "I cannot guarantee that an independent Polish court wouldn't order the government to escort such a plane and hand over the suspect to The Hague," he declared ominously. But could this be more than just rhetoric? What if Poland is quietly preparing for the unimaginable? Poland's action comes just weeks after tensions ran high when Russia's drones invaded its airspace. Now, Poland has shut its skies to all Russian aircraft, heightening the sense of urgency around Trump and Putin's planned talks. Could Poland's stark refusal to permit Putin's passage lead to a confrontation that sparks greater conflict? If not Poland, then what routes remain for the Russian leader? The clock is ticking, and time is running out for Putin to secure safe passage. Flying through Ukraine is out of the question, the looming threat is crystal clear. Ukrainian defense systems are primed to target Russian aircraft without hesitation. What about Slovakia, Romania, or Serbia? Each of these nations is entangled in treaties and alliances that complicate Putin's options further. With every hour that passes, the risk escalates. What will happen if he tries to breach another country's airspace, which could very well end in an arrest? In a surprising turn, the EU has enabled its member states to decide the fate of Putin's flight over individual territories. This decision to loosen restrictions raises an intriguing question. Will the prospect of peace negotiations persuade countries like Romania or Bulgaria to make an exception? Or will they, like Poland, adhere to international obligations and deny him access? As European nations re-evaluate their alliances, the air buzzes with potential consequences. Analysts within the region speculate on the ramifications of Sikorsky's warning. If Poland enforces the no-fly zone, who will follow suit? Furthermore, how will Russia respond? The tension grows stronger, and the stage is set for a dramatic showdown. As discussions unfold around the ICC and its warrant against Putin, gripping uncertainties linger. The main question remains, will Trump and Putin's ambitions for peace be crushed before they even take flight? With every passing moment, the patchwork of alliances seems to unravel, hinting at a gripping climax where destiny and decisions intertwine. Can peace be brokered? Or will this be the moment that ignites an even greater conflict in Eastern Europe? The world waits with bated breath. In the unfolding drama of international diplomacy, a thrilling new chapter is set to unravel. The stakes have never been higher as U.S. President Trump makes one of his most audacious moves yet, a proposed meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Hungary. The atmosphere buzzes with tension. Will it lead to peace, or ignite even more conflict? The backdrop is a complicated web of alliances and animosities. Hungary, a member of the European Union, stands at the center of this diplomatic tempest. However, Polish ambitions complicate matters significantly. Poland has taken a bold step by declaring its intention to intercept Putin's jet should he choose to navigate through its airspace. It's a declaration filled with bravado, echoing across the continent, cross our border, and prepare to face arrest. Can such declarations alter the course of an entire diplomatic mission? As we sift through the fragments of this geopolitical puzzle, we discover Poland's Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski warning of severe consequences should Putin dare to fly over Poland. His ominous tone lingers in the air like the metallic tang of tension before a storm. The promise of legal repercussions under an international criminal court warrant casts a dark shadow over Putin's travel plans. What if he tries to dodge Polish skies? Navigating the map is no simple feat for the Russian leader. With Ukraine off-limits and Slovakia out of reach, what alternatives remain? Sikorski's comments infuse the air with anticipation as questions swirl. Can Putin find another route to Hungary, or is he cornered with nowhere to go? And what happens to peace talks if Putin can't even arrive? The potential for confrontation grows, amplified by the uncertainty of his journey. Would Romania or Bulgaria, both ICC members, allow his passage? What if they follow Poland's lead? As strategists ponder these scenarios, the ticking clock adds an element of urgency. Each diplomatic door slams shut with a resounding echo. Russia's response is swift and cutting. Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, unleashes a volley of indignation towards Poland, branding their actions as nothing short of terrorism. His claims create a chaotic tapestry of accusations, but does any of it hold weight? Poland's right to control its airspace stands firm against the backdrop of Lavrov's fiery rhetoric. Meanwhile, silence hangs heavy in the air. Is a future in which Putin may face arrest becoming more tangible? As we delve deeper into the implications of Sikorski's statements, we confront the grim responsibilities conferred by the ICC. The looming warrant for Putin creates an atmosphere thick with tension. He is not merely a leader but a fugitive within the realms of international law. With Hungary poised to give him safe haven, how can Poland and other countries justify their position? The drama unfolds, tinged with the uncertainty of what comes next. Each nation weighed down with historical grievances forges alliances, and much rests on whether this summit can lead to tangible peace. The implications echo beyond borders, raising complex questions. Can countries honor their obligations under international law while navigating the treacherous waters of diplomacy? As the narrative spirals, one burning question lingers: can a meeting between Trump and Putin pave the way for lasting peace, or are we teetering on the brink of another international crisis? The world watches closely, the outcome hangs in the balance, as the clock ticks ominously toward an uncertain future. In a dramatic twist in international relations, former President Trump is making bold moves to broker peace between Ukraine and Russia. His audacious plan involves a face-to-face meeting with Russian leader Vladimir Putin in Hungary. However, a looming obstacle threatens this mission: Poland. The nation has declared its airspace off-limits to Putin's jet, threatening to intercept and arrest him if he attempts to enter. Poland's stance is crystal clear. Following recent tensions, especially regarding Russian drones encroaching on its airspace, Poland has emphatically closed off its skies to Russia. Any attempt by Putin to fly over Polish territory could lead not just to embarrassment, but to potential arrest due to an international warrant issued by the International Criminal Court. Imagine the tension: what if Putin, determined to attend the summit with Trump, tries to defy Poland's orders? Could he truly risk being apprehended mid-flight? As Poland's Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski bluntly expressed, there's no guarantee that an independent Polish court wouldn't seize the opportunity to deliver Putin to justice. Sikorski's remarks imply that any incursion into Polish airspace could be met with swift and decisive action, echoing the collective sentiment among ICC signatories about their obligation to uphold international law. This brings to the forefront an unsettling question: if Poland's airspace is a no-go zone for the Russian leader, what alternatives does he have? The scenario becomes more precarious when considering neighboring nations. Ukraine would aggressively target any Russian aircraft, while Slovakia is similarly boxed in by NATO obligations, leaving few viable routes. Could Putin then chart a course through Romania or Serbia, nations that carry the risk of ICC intervention as well? Despite the potential for NATO's acceptance of the request, do these countries really want to jeopardize their relations by granting permission? The stakes are high. To navigate these airspace labyrinths, the most viable, yet complicated, route could see Putin traversing through Turkey and the Balkans. But even there, trouble brews. Turkey's NATO membership complicates things, raising concerns about backlash against a figure suspected of profound transgressions. Every move is being watched closely. Poland's firm stance signals a strong commitment to accountability, leading to a crescendo of international tension. Is it possible that U.S. support for these actions will grow stronger in light of this unraveling drama? While Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov furiously denounces Poland's actions as terrorism, the double standards become evident. With allegations flying about Poland stoking conflict against Russia, one can't ignore Russia's own provocations. As these nations posture and puff out chests, the rules of international air travel seem to hang by a thread, calling into question the validity of diplomatic efforts. Amid this turmoil, one undeniable truth stands tall: Poland is reinforcing the principle that every country has the absolute right to defend its airspace. If the ICC's warrant means anything, then Putin's journey to meet Trump could become an unexpected international spectacle, one that might reshape how nations perceive sovereignty and accountability. So what does this mean for Trump's ambitious peace talks? As Hungary offers a sanctuary for Putin, will he ever make it there, or will he be left circling aimlessly in the international limelight, a prisoner of his own defiance? Only time will unravel this geopolitical puzzle, and the consequences could echo in history for generations to come. In a political drama unfolding on the international stage, tensions rise as former President Trump's ambitious plan for a peace summit between Ukraine and Russia hangs by a thread. The setting? Hungary, where Trump hopes to broker a groundbreaking meeting with President Putin. But one critical question looms: can Putin even get there? Just as Trump prepares for diplomacy, Poland declares it will intercept Putin's jet if he dares to cross its airspace. Can the summit survive this high-stakes standoff? Poland's assertive stance against Russia's leader has sent shockwaves through the diplomatic community. With a firm vow, Poland has barricaded its skies, stating that not even Putin himself may traverse this territory without facing arrest under an international criminal court warrant. As the Polish foreign minister, Radoslaw Sikorski, expresses his nation's firm resolve, he brands any breach a significant risk for Russia's president. This declaration shakes the very foundations of Trump's peace initiative. Where will Putin fly now? Imagine the tension as Poland draws a hard line, echoing through the halls of power. A month prior, Russia's drones breached Polish airspace, igniting concerns. Now, as the world watches, Sikorski indicates that any aircraft carrying Putin might be escorted to face justice. The implications are profound. Could this lead to an embarrassing international incident? If not Poland, where else could Putin possibly land without risking apprehension? The Balkan route, over Turkey, emerges as one possibility, but could this route offer the safety the Russian leader needs? Yet, the tension escalates. While Poland is resolute, the EU takes a decisive step back, leaving individual nations to navigate this diplomatic minefield. The European Commission has allowed for flexibility regarding anti-Russian flights. While Trump seeks paths toward peace, each choice carries heavy ramifications. How will other countries react to Putin's potential air journey? With a heightened awareness, nations may hesitate to give safe passage to a leader accused of war crimes. As the clock ticks closer to the intended summit, speculation flourishes. Any gain for peace risks unraveling at the hands of Poland's firm stance. Could Hungary, the location meant to play host, provide an escape for Putin? Or would the Russian leader find himself ensnared in a web of international justice? The anticipation thickens, as these geopolitical maneuvers seem almost cinematic in nature. The stakes couldn't be higher. On one side, Trump's hope for a diplomatic breakthrough, on the other, the specter of Putin's arrest. As the dust settles on this political battlefield, the balance of power hangs precariously. Will they manage to find common ground, or will history mark this moment as a failure of diplomacy? The world holds its breath, waiting for the dramatic twists that are sure to unfold in this riveting saga of power, politics, and the quest for peace. In a world teetering on the brink of war, a dramatic clash unfolds between two nations. Amidst the swirling tensions, former President Trump is meticulously crafting a plan aimed at fostering peace between Ukraine and Russia. His boldest move yet? An audacious face-to-face meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Hungary. However, this ambitious gamble faces an immediate and fierce resistance. Poland, steadfast in its stance, has declared that it will intercept Putin's aircraft should it enter Polish airspace, claiming it has no right to cross over. This warning sends shockwaves through geopolitical circles, throwing Trump's proposed summit into disarray. The tension rises as Poland, fresh off negotiations with Russia regarding drone incursions, firmly asserts that Russian air traffic is unwelcome. Polish Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski raises the stakes with a chilling proclamation: if Putin dares to fly over Poland, he risks arrest under an international criminal court warrant. Sikorski's words drip with foreboding as he hints at Poland transforming into a no-fly zone for the Russian leader. He urges that any aircraft bearing Putin must proceed with extreme caution, raising questions about potential detours. This brings forth an unsettling inquiry: if Poland is off-limits, what alternative routes does Putin possess to reach Hungary? Traveling through Ukraine would be suicidal, as Ukrainian defenses lie in wait, ready to strike. Slovakia presents similar obstacles, with airspace controlled by Ukraine and Poland. Could Romania or Serbia offer a lifeline? Not while Romania remains vigilant as an EU member, unlikely to permit entry for a perceived war criminal. But the EU finds itself at a crossroads, contemplating the ramifications of Putin's potential journey. Despite implementing a blanket ban on Russian flights, they must weigh the possibility that his visit could pave the way to peace talks. A spokesperson for the European Commission suggests individual member states decide on flight bans, leaving the door ajar for negotiation. What will become of Trump's mission to broker peace? The very fate of this critical meeting hangs in the balance, entangled in a web of international laws and intricate politics. Meanwhile, in a shocking twist, Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, accuses Poland of acts of terrorism. Yet the irony is palpable, considering Russia's own recent provocations. As the clock ticks down, and amidst this charged climate, the specter of an ICC arrest looms large. The stakes escalate, intertwining fate and consequence. Can diplomacy survive the storm raging around it? As plans unfold, questions remain: is peace achievable, or are we on the precipice of confrontation? Only time will reveal whether Putin will defy the odds and embark on his perilous journey to Hungary, or if he'll be forever grounded by the looming apprehensions of an unforgiving world. The previous segment explored Europe's bold options for Ukraine amid growing tensions, from triggering alarms on Russian ceasefire breaches to deploying a combat-ready force not to engage directly in war, but to deter future aggression, highlighting NATO's cautious stance and internal divisions. Imagine the roar of jet engines shattering the dawn sky, the acrid scent of fuel mingling with the crisp chill of pre-winter air, as waves of elite soldiers step onto foreign soil, not to hurl grenades into gunfire, but to stand like unwavering sentinels against the shadow of invasion. Why would Poland's fierce stance make President Trump's summit with Putin a house of cards teetering on a razor edge? How far will Europe bend before snapping into a military mirage? Europe refuses to dispatch troops to battle alongside Ukrainians right now, during this raging storm of conflict. Instead, these forces would arrive in peacetime, poised and alert, ready to repel any Russian thrust back into the heart of Ukraine. Picture boots crunching on gravel, rifles gleaming under floodlights, a line of defenders exuding raw, unyielding power. Imagine the seismic jolt if Russia dares strike, the justification for NATO's thunderous retaliation, reshaping the global stage overnight. Up to 150,000 warriors are needed for this colossal shield, a massive demand dwarfing ordinary deployments. Europe boasts around 1.5 million total troops, meaning a tenth would embed in Ukraine, transforming the battlefield into a fortress walled by willpower. The numbers pulse like a heartbeat. Stark and demanding, where would the funds flood from? What secret alliances strain under the weight? Back in September, analysts warned that this coalition hangs on frayed threads of agreement. While the UK pledges resolve, vocal about troops joining the fray, and hints from other European nations echo like muffled drums, deep rifts within the group could unravel everything. Where does greed clash with bravery? Europe's dread of a head-on clash with the Kremlin shackles potential troop numbers, shrinking dreams of dominance. Yet, this restraint doesn't render the force pointless. Beyond ground troops, the alliance might weave aerial watchers into the skies, mimicking NATO's vigilant patrols. Feel the rumble of engines above, the eagle-eyed screens tracking every shadow. Such a network could report threats, counter Russia's sly hybrid maneuvers, those whispered plots and covert strikes feeling the sting of exposure. Would Putin tremble, sensing eyes everywhere, his moves unraveling like a fraying rope? Dwells the question, if Russia blinks, could this aerial veil turn the tide? And what's the hidden cost, the alliances cracking like fragile ice underfoot? As debates simmer, one undeniable truth emerges: the continent inches toward peace or peril, each decision a gamble in the dimming light of unresolved fury. But why does Europe's hesitation hum with betrayal's echo, leaving Ukraine's fate dangling like a noose? In the heart of a turbulent geopolitical landscape, tensions are boiling over as U.S. President Trump seeks an elusive peace between Ukraine and Russia. His boldest move yet? A face-to-face meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Hungary, a country caught in the crossfire of international intrigue. But looming over this summit is a shocking ultimatum: Poland, a neighboring power, has declared its airspace a no-fly zone for Putin. If he dares to enter, he risks immediate arrest on an international warrant. Poland's foreign minister, Radoslaw Sikorski, has not minced words, clearly stating that any plane carrying Putin could face interception. In a radio interview, he conveyed this stern message, emphasizing that an independent Polish court might order the government to capture the Russian leader. As the tension escalates, Sikorski's comments echo in the minds of many: could Putin really be forced to alter his path to Hungary? Details of this situation create a chilling atmosphere, one filled with uncertainty and potential for unprecedented conflict. If Poland's airspace is indeed closed, what routes remain for the Russian leader? The options appear slim. Bordering Hungary, Ukraine's airspace is a no-fly zone for any Russian aircraft, with the Ukrainian military on high alert. Slovakia presents similar challenges, as crossing through Poland is unavoidable. To the south lies Romania, a member of both the EU and NATO, and Bulgaria, which shares the same affiliations. Sikorski's assertions suggest these nations might be swayed by Poland's stance, as international law ties their hands in the face of an ICC warrant. Could they also decide to ground any flight carrying Putin? As the icy grip of diplomacy holds the future of this summit in suspense, the European Union has ironically left the decision to individual states, weighing the prospect of peace talks against the backdrop of international obligation. While Hungary promises Putin safe passage, Poland relentlessly stands firm, asserting its right to enforce the law. The echo of previous aggressions amplifies this uncertain climate. Russia, having infiltrated Polish airspace days prior, labels Poland's defiance as a terrorist act. The audacity of this claim gives rise to deeper twists in this narrative. As accusations fly, the hypocrisy of such statements becomes glaringly apparent. Nations possess the right to safeguard their skies, unshackled by Putin's defiance of international regulations. The repercussions of the ICC warrant remain stark. While Putin may consider Hungary to be a sanctuary from arrest, he is bound by law that governs his flight. Past attempts to negotiate a post-war armistice emphasize the complex nature of these relations. The prospect of European troops in Ukraine has always been fraught with danger, serving only to heighten tensions, a potential flashpoint on a volatile stage. A recent commentary complicates matters further. As Trump prepares to engage with Putin, the coalition of willing contributors to Ukraine must grapple with their next steps. The time is ripe for dilemmas. Europe may soon need to choose whether to push forward with peacekeeping efforts, potentially against Russia's wishes, or remain dormant and risk further conflict. Will the cold winds of war stir once more from this precarious alliance, or can a path to peace be cleared? The stakes are higher than ever as each player on this vast geopolitical chessboard contemplates their next move amid the silence of impending chaos. The meeting may hold fleeting hope for resolution, yet the daunting specter of dire consequences looms ever closer. The world was on edge as President Trump aimed for an unprecedented meeting with Vladimir Putin in Hungary. Hopes for peace were running high, but the tension was palpable. Would this summit offer a breakthrough in the ongoing conflict, or was it simply a mirage? As the stakes mounted, one nation voiced an unwavering stand. Poland threatened to intercept Putin's jet and arrest him if he dared enter its airspace. Poland declared it would not grant passage to the Russian leader, citing a strict closure of its borders. With a warrant from the International Criminal Court hanging over Putin, the urgency intensified. Foreign Minister Radoslav Sikorski's warning resonated: if Putin entered Poland, he could face immediate arrest. The mere thought sent shivers down the spine of the Kremlin, as the specter of international law loomed large. But where could Putin fly? Not even the direct route through Ukraine seemed plausible, as Ukrainian jets would be primed to strike. Slovakia posed a challenge too, as flights would need to navigate over Poland or Ukraine. To the southeast, only Romania and Serbia seemed viable options. Yet, Romania's alignment with the EU and NATO made cooperation unlikely, especially with the ICC's mandate hanging overhead. Could this meeting happen, or was it doomed to collapse under the weight of diplomacy? After all, the European Union had placed a ban on Russian flights, and individual states were divided. They wrestled with the potential for peace talks against the backdrop of international law. As Europe deliberated, a vital question loomed: would nations aligned with the ICC risk letting Putin pass, knowing they could be compelled to arrest him? Even in Hungary, which had offered assurances of safety, doubts arose. The country had its own complicated relationship with the ICC and had previously welcomed leaders like Israel's Netanyahu, defying arrest warrants. But the issue of how Putin would get to Hungary verged on critical, as Sikorski's comments lingered in the air. Would the summit, once anticipated as a beacon of hope, devolve into mere posturing? The intense dynamic shifted further when fiery rhetoric erupted from Russia. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov lashed out at Poland, labeling the refusal to grant passage as a terrorist act. The hypocrisy was astounding. Just weeks before, Russia had sent drones into Polish airspace. To claim Poland was acting unlawfully seemed desperate and disingenuous. Yet the international community watched, holding its breath. As news broke that the Hungary summit was potentially collapsing, the question remained, what would be the consequence for the fragile power dynamics in Europe? With speculation swirling regarding the impending arrest and stringent warnings reverberating through the diplomatic channels, the curtain on this play was far from drawing to a close. Tension simmered as uncertainty ruled the day. Would any nations choose to disregard the ICC's guidelines and allow Putin safe passage, or would Poland's gamble shift the balance of power undeniably? While negotiations faltered, the ramifications of this impending clash were bound to shape the geopolitical landscape for years to come. President Trump had plans to meet with President Putin in Hungary, but now, that future appears uncertain. It may seem strange given that the meeting has been the focal point of the news recently, but the messages from Moscow suggest a refusal to back down on radical demands. These signals indicate that Russia might perceive an opportunity, potentially believing the US could pressure Ukraine into conceding territory. As negotiations return to a standstill reminiscent of previous months, the implications for the United Kingdom and its allies remain hazy. Europe seems ready for action, yet without a peace agreement, any military deployment would provoke fierce retaliation from Russia. If that happens, will Russia withdraw, or could the situation ignite a continental war? The question hangs heavily in the air. Ukraine's struggle has evolved into more than just a frontline battle. It now faces a covert conflict against Russian strongholds, striking deep within the country's heartland. In cities across Russia, drones and missiles from Ukraine are increasingly visible, targeting crucial military assets and infrastructure. With these attacks on the rise, President Vladimir Putin finds it increasingly challenging to maintain the facade of normalcy for his people. The carefully constructed illusion of safety is crumbling, awakening many Russians to the brutal truths of war. Particularly in the Bryansk region, which borders Ukraine to the south and Belarus to the north, this reality is hitting hard. The area, home to over 1.1 million residents and spanning around 13,458 square miles, has become a prime target for Ukrainian forces vying to cripple Russian military strength. As pressure mounts, local officials struggle to assure the population that there is nothing to fear, but the clamor of dissent grows louder. Just days ago, an alarming incident unfolded in Bryansk that underscored this shifting landscape. In a world teetering on the brink of chaos, a monumental attempt at peace unfolds. Amid the backdrop of escalating tensions between Ukraine and Russia, U.S. President Trump orchestrates a daring move, a face-to-face meeting with Vladimir Putin in Hungary. However, this seemingly straightforward plan faces daunting obstacles as Poland issues a bold ultimatum. The very airspace that Putin must traverse becomes a battleground, where politics and international law intertwine in a high-stakes game that could alter the course of history. Poland, a fierce guardian of its sovereignty, declares that if Putin dares to fly over its territory, he will be intercepted and arrested, a dramatic turn that sends shockwaves through diplomatic circles. The Polish foreign minister, Radoslaw Sikorski, issues a dire warning to the Kremlin, suggesting that any flight through Polish airspace could lead to a court-ordered arrest. His words echo like a siren, a stark reminder of the implications of the International Criminal Court's warrant against the Russian leader, transforming Poland into a no-fly zone for Putin. But the stakes extend beyond Poland's firm resolve. As Sikorski's warnings ripple through NATO and EU member states, questions loom: will other nations follow Poland's lead? Who will grant Putin safe passage if he cannot traverse the skies above Poland? A maze of potential routes opens up, yet each option presents peril. Ukraine's border lies dangerous and hostile, while Slovakia, Romania, and Bulgaria tighten their own policies in response to rising tensions. The Erdogan-led Turkey presents an intriguing alternative route, yet even that path is fraught with NATO's complications. As accusations fly, Russia responds. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov accuses Poland of acts of terrorism, claiming they jeopardize peace and stability. In a tumultuous exchange of words, both nations grapple with the implications of international law and the sovereignty that defines them. The narrative leaps forward. What will be the outcome as Putin seeks to attend the summit that could potentially pave the way for peace? In a powerful twist, contrasting narratives emerge from Bryansk, near the volatile Ukrainian border. Local officials paint a picture of fear and chaos that starkly contrasts the Kremlin's portrayal of calm. On October 20, as Ukrainian drones reportedly infiltrate Russian airspace, locals in the town of Clancy find themselves caught in a maelstrom of sirens, explosions, and desperate anti-aircraft fire. The narrative shifts dramatically as residents recount their night filled with anxiety, altering perceptions of security within the region. The tension crescendos as the Russian military reports the downing of 2 drones, proclaiming no injuries or damage, an assertion that local news contradicts. Eyewitnesses recount a reality steeped in confusion and danger, with reports of minor injuries and actual impacts on buildings. This clash of narratives raises urgent questions. How do the citizens of Bryansk perceive their government's assurances? Can the Kremlin maintain its grip on reality in the face of mounting dissent? With the specter of international consequences looming overhead, how will this complicated web of diplomacy, military action, and public perception unfold? The unfolding drama at the intersection of power and the human experience continues, promising further electrifying developments as the fates of nations hang in the balance. In a dramatic face-off on the world stage, tensions are escalating as President Trump takes a bold step toward peace. His ambitious plan for a direct meeting with Vladimir Putin in Hungary hangs precariously in the balance, threatened by an uncompromising stand from Poland. As planes prepare to take flight, a storm brews over airspace that could change the course of history. In a surprising twist, Poland has vowed to intercept any jet carrying Putin, declaring its airspace entirely off-limits. This isn't just political posturing, it's a declaration of intent backed by the threat of arrest under an ICC warrant. As the Polish Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski declared in a recent radio interview, there's no guarantee for Putin if he dares to enter Polish skies. The stakes have been raised, with a chilling reminder that the Kremlin's leader might find himself ensnared by the very laws he consistently defies. Yet, how will Putin maneuver this perilous landscape? With eyes on Hungary, he must navigate a minefield of airspace restrictions. Crossing directly into Ukraine is out of the question. Ukrainian defenses are primed and ready. Poland's firm stance leaves few options. Slovakia and Romania, both EU members, complicate his path further. As Sikorski put it, what route could he possibly take? It's a precarious game of cat and mouse, and the clock is ticking. Suspense hangs thick in the air. As speculation mounts, the potential for peace or confrontation looms. With every flight plan scrutinized, unanswered questions ripple through international circles. Will Romania and Bulgaria provide safe passage? Or will they join Poland in a resolute stance against a Russian flyover? The air is electric with uncertainty, mirroring the tension within the corridors of power in Europe. Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister, accuses Poland of terrorism for denying Putin safe passage. Yet, while Poland stands firm in its anti-Putin stance, Russia carries its own baggage, previously sending drones into Polish airspace. The absurdity of Lavrov's claims of terrorism is palpable, serving only to distract from the reality of Russia's own transgressions. As the story unfolds, the ICC warrant versus Putin's planned summit creates a storm of speculation. The ICC, based in The Hague, operates under the Roman Statute, obligating member states to adhere to its mandates. With over 125 nations, including Poland, bound by this obligation, the realities of international law threaten to ensnare a leader who thrives in defiance. With Hungary, often in flaunting contrast to the EU, affirming that no arrest will happen on its grounds, the situation grows all the more complicated. Yet, Hungary's ongoing exit from the ICC raises eyebrows. This dance of political maneuvering teeters on the edge of chaos. What happens next? Will Putin find a way to evade capture, or will he face the consequences of his actions in a double-edged sprint towards power? The world watches, breaths held in anticipation of a meeting that could either forge peace or ignite further conflict. Each decision echoes far beyond borders, shaping the future of international relations. As the plot thickens, stay tuned for the next chapter in this gripping saga. In a world riddled with tension, U.S. President Trump is seeking respite in the form of peace talks between Ukraine and Russia. His boldest venture yet has him pondering a meeting with Vladimir Putin in Hungary, a nation nestled within the European Union. However, a dramatic twist arises as Poland, an unwavering European ally, threatens to intercept Putin's jet should it dare to enter its airspace. The stakes couldn't be higher. Poland has firmly declared its airspace closed to Russian aircraft, clearly stating that not only military jets but also Putin himself would be unable to traverse their skies. Reeling from previous incursions, they approach this situation with palpable agitation. Poland's foreign minister, Radoslaw Sikorski, made headlines when he warned that should Putin attempt to fly over Poland, he could find himself facing arrest under an international criminal court warrant. Just imagine the chaos if such a scenario unfolded. This ultimatum from Poland creates a web of uncertainty. How can Putin hope to reach Hungary if he cannot fly through Poland? With Ukraine directly to the east bristling with anticipation of a Russian plane crossing its borders, that path is perilous. Slovakia, a neighboring country, could also serve as an obstacle, as its airspace requires passage through either Poland or Ukraine, both highly improbable routes for Putin to take in light of the current political climate. Scrutinizing further, Romania and Serbia emerge as potential alternatives. Yet, Romania, an EU member, is unlikely to permit Putin's passage. While Serbia's cooperation hinges upon navigating through Bulgaria, making it another restricting factor. With multiple nations refusing to roll out the red carpet for the Russian leader, he finds himself trapped in a diplomatic labyrinth. Yet, what if this grand summit is a chance for peace? The EU, rather intriguingly, has chosen to allow individual member nations to determine the fate of Putin's passage. Could this decision be a harbinger of hope for diplomatic resolutions? A spokesperson from the European Commission has implied that any dialogue promoting peace in Ukraine is welcomed. Could Trump's meeting with Putin be just that? Meanwhile, the shadows of international law loom large. The ICC has issued an arrest warrant against Putin, criminalizing him for war crimes, and obligating Poland, along with other signatories, to detain him should he enter their territories. Could this legal web trap the Russian leader in a way he never anticipated? As Poland emerges as a determined barrier, Russian officials have furiously condemned these developments, branding them acts of terrorism. Ironically, this narrative of victimhood clashes with their history of aggression, especially after recent incursions into Polish airspace. The absurdity of the accusations raises a poignant question: are they simply deflecting blame while the tide turns against them? With every passing moment, the fate of Trump and Putin's meeting hangs by a thread, strained under the weight of legal obligations and fierce international scrutiny. Will they find a way to meet, or is this the moment the tides of history shift irrevocably? The clock is ticking, and as borders close, one can sense the tension rising. Imagine the roar of engines echoing through war-torn skies, the sharp sting of shrapnel digging into flesh, and now, a shocking question that will leave you breathless: what if one man's wounds exposed Russia's crumbling defenses, proving that Putin's iron grip is slipping under Ukraine's relentless assaults? In our last episode, U.S. President Trump relentlessly pushed for peace talks between Ukraine and Russia. His bold move, a face-to-face with Vladimir Putin in Hungary. But Poland's explosive vow to shoot down Putin's plane turned everything upside down, leaving the summit hanging by a thread. Picture the bleak hospitals of the Bryansk region. Ivan Slavchenko, a Russian soldier from Sezmenki district, gasped for air as blood soaked his uniform. Wounded by a Ukrainian FPV drone, his skin tore open like parchment paper under a cruel pen. The metallic tang of blood filled the air, the faint buzz of failing machinery lingering like a warning. Astro sources whispered from shadowed corners, local officials? They rarely uttered a word about soldiers' pains, fearing the Kremlin's wrath. But Ivan's agony flashed across Bryansk like wildfire. Why? Because everyday folks felt it now. No more distant echoes of war, this was the hammer pounding their doors. Could they ignore the slow boil of fear, or would silence shatter their world? And just when you think the horror couldn't deepen, one brutal twist awaits. As we uncovered, a wounded Russian soldier named Ivan Slavchenko laid bare the silent terror gripping Bryansk. Civilians sensed Ukraine's strikes in their bones, forcing truths into the light. Rhetorical question piercing the silence: if a mere farm could become a battlefield, what sacred stronghold might falter next? The acrid smell of charred earth, the screech of livestock in panic, unveiled a startling anomaly on October 20th. One Ukrainian drone crashed into an agricultural hub in Durakov village. No human casualties, but a slaughter. Cattle and chickens crumpled in heaps, their feathers swirling like grim confetti in the dust-choked wind. Farms weren't Kiev's usual prey, this reeked of mistake or hidden motive. Why strike here? Was it fate's cruel hand, or a calculated shadow play? Either way, it paled beside Ukraine's masterstrokes. Their deep raids hammered military veins, command posts pulsing with secrets, airfields humming with doom, headquarters teeming with orders. They crippled Russia's war chest too, oil refineries belching smoke, fuel tanks erupting in furious flames, power stations flickering into darkness. Ukraine spared random farms, or did they? This outlier mocked the pattern, a puzzle piece in a mosaic of chaos. Almost every other hit obeyed Kiev's cold logic, targeting the Kremlin's war engine. But darkness tightens its grip. Will Russia's defenses hold, or erupt in unforeseen fury? Buckle up for more. We just saw how one farm's destruction defied Ukraine's calculated hits on Russia's war machine. Deep strikes ravaged critical sites, yet this anomaly whispered of deeper plots. Feel the tremors building, a shocking revelation. Imagine the Kremlin's gear grinding to a halt under Ukraine's unyielding march. The rumble of explosions. The oily stench of machinery burning hit an electro-diesel factory in Karachev, Bryansk, earlier on October 20th. Shattered by drones and missiles, it produced key parts for Russia's military beast, electrical connectors wiring jets and tanks, vital hardware fueling assault. This wasn't happenstance. Kiev aimed straight for the heart. Could they have glimpsed hidden weaknesses? Pentagon secrets slipping? Or was this vengeance for unseen slights? Regardless, politicians hiding facts now looked like fools, their elections teetering on exposure. Reports flooded Telegram, detailing the blow. Ivan Slavchenko's wounds and this factory carnage painted a chilling portrait. And as chaos unravels, what if more factories fall, crumbling Putin's empire from within? In late September, another wave smashed through. The whispers of attacks grew louder, separating myth from brutal reality. Heads would roll if leaders dared conceal these scars. In a world where international tensions rise like smoke from a burning city, Ukraine's forces have launched a bold strike that sends shockwaves across the battlefield. A strategic drone and missile attack targeted the electro-diesel factory in the town of Karachev, Russia, a facility critical to sustaining the Kremlin's war machine. While the reasons behind this specific target remain unclear, it marks yet another chapter in Ukraine's ongoing campaign to weaken its adversary. On September 29, tension reached a boiling point as Ukrainian missile forces and artillery unleashed a barrage upon the Karachev plant. This industrial compound produces essential electronic components, including connectors used in military equipment and aircraft. The heart of a military operation, the facility found itself in the crosshairs of a country seeking to diminish the capabilities of an occupying army. The operation was as precise as it was deliberate, striking a blow to the enemy under the cover of darkness, with missiles traversing over 240 kilometers to find their mark. As detonations echoed through the air, thick plumes of black smoke spiraled high into the sky, darkening the horizons and signifying the destructive reality of war. Videos emerged on social media, capturing the chaos, a cacophony of explosions, the reverberating sound of conflict, and cries of disbelief from the locals as their town felt the brunt of the assault. The message was clear: Ukraine was willing to take bold risks, even if it meant striking at the very foundations of Russia's military infrastructure. Days later, the strikes intensified. On October 6, a violent wave of assaults slammed into the Bryansk region, targeting three key energy facilities, crucial lifelines of electricity and sustenance to the Russian military. As the night fell, an air raid signaled the start of a significant missile attack that would leave its mark on the region. Each explosion an assertion of Ukraine's resolve, and not just a military tactic but a declaration that they would not remain passive in the face of aggression. This escalating back and forth blares the alarm for potential retribution, leading to the pertinent question, how will the Kremlin respond? As the pieces of this geopolitical chess game continue to move, we find ourselves questioning not just the fate of lifelines like oil pipelines and power plants but the stability of the entire region. Will Ukraine's audacious tactical maneuvers lay the groundwork for a decisive victory, or will it provoke an even fiercer retaliation from Russia? The stage is set, and the world watches in anticipation of the unfolding drama. In the heart of Bryansk, a storm brews. Three vital energy targets, the lifeline of the region, stand in the crosshairs of the conflict. On the night of October 6, chaos descended upon this tranquil locale when Ukrainian missiles struck with devastating precision. As reports emerged, residents flinched with every echoing blast. The thermal power plant in Clinty became a smoking silhouette against the night sky, leaving half the city's residents shivering without heat. But here's the twist, this is just the beginning. Sources from the Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations confirmed the poignant aftermath. Gas supplies to the plant, critical for warmth during the cold nights, were severed. No one knew what type of missiles had shattered this calm, but the damage was undeniable. Footage flooded social media, revealing the charred remains of what was once a bustling facility, the Klintz-Ossakaya thermal power plant, the main source of warmth for the city. Simultaneously, the A-10 Steel Horse Line dispatch station came under fire again. This facility, vital to Transneft JSC's operations, had already felt the wrath of Ukrainian artillery weeks prior. Additionally, the Natopovichi electrical substation faced a similar fate, plunging two districts into darkness for an agonizing hour. Imagine the scene, families huddled together, peering out from behind shattered glass as explosions illuminated the sky. Tens of thousands were suddenly left vulnerable, the warmth of their homes snatched away in moments. Across Russia, in towns and cities alike, the narrative unfolds, ordinary citizens witnessing the harsh realities of war firsthand. And as unsettling images began circulating online, Putin's grand illusion of safety began to crumble. In Bryansk, the heart of this turmoil, awareness loomed like a palpable specter. It was as if the very ground had transformed, people were awakening to the stark truth that the Kremlin could no longer hide. With each missile strike, the resistance against the oppressive silence of the regime swelled. But what would this mean for the Kremlin? What happens when a population realizes they are under siege? The question lingers in the air, heavy with anticipation. The attacks were not isolated incidents, they were a concerted draw on the strength of an entire nation designed to fracture the facade. The hidden truth is, Bryansk, with its strategic energy infrastructure, became a battleground, igniting a reckoning as evident in the collective eyes of the populace, eyes that were now unafraid to speak out and share their grim realities. As the conflict escalated, another layer emerged. How would the Kremlin respond when its grip began to slip from the hearts and minds of its citizens? Would they retaliate in desperation or try to weave a narrative to suit the growing unrest? The uncertainties rise higher than the billowing smoke from the scorched earth below, with every explosion signaling a call to action, a call for truth, a fight for change that could reshape the future. As tensions escalate, the world watches with bated breath. An audacious plot unfolds. U.S. President Trump aims to broker peace amidst the chaos in Ukraine. But wait, what if the unwelcome shadow of Putin looms large over this peace summit? He intends to travel to Hungary, a EU member country, but Poland stands fiercely in his way. They threaten to ground his aircraft if he dares to fly over their territory. What happens if he makes a wrong move? In a startling declaration, Polish Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski warns that if Putin attempts to enter Polish airspace, he could face arrest under an international criminal court warrant. This revelation sends shockwaves through diplomatic circles. Poland's airspace, declared a no-fly zone for Russia, makes it increasingly perilous for Putin to reach Hungary for the anticipated talks with Trump. Opportunities shrink as options dwindle. Putin's flight path becomes a puzzle with missing pieces. Slovakia is a no-go without going over Poland first. The route over Ukraine presents a deadly gamble. The moment he crosses that border, Ukrainian forces will be waiting to pounce. Could he defy the odds and find safe passage through Romania and Serbia? Yet, both countries are bound by the same ICC obligations. Even if they turn a blind eye, will international pressures prevent Putin's escape? As rumors swirl, an unexpected twist arises. The European Union, having initially enforced strict flight bans in response to Russia's aggression, now contemplates the possibility of negotiations leading to peace. Could this leniency shift the stance of member states? For instance, the Turkish route, the one that avoids the ICC shackles, beckons as Putin's last lifeline, but it's fraught with its own dangers as NATO surveillance looms. With the stakes this high, reactions reverberate through the corridors of power. Russia's Lavrov hurls accusations at Poland, claiming their refusal to permit Putin's flight is an act of terrorism. Yet Poland stands firm, insisting on sovereignty over its airspace, a right every nation possesses. The truth is cloaked in geopolitical intricacies, with accusations flying and lines being drawn. What does this mean for the essential summit? The future of peace hangs in the balance as Hungary guarantees Putin's safety if he arrives there. However, Sikorski's words echo ominously, whether by court order or international obligation. Poland's declaration transforms the flight into a treacherous endeavor. Will Trump find a way to bring the two leaders together, or will this standoff spiral into chaos? As the clock ticks down to the summit, uncertainty reigns. How will this relentless geopolitical chess game unfold? What does it mean for the future of Ukraine, Russia, and the world at large? The tension is palpable, thick in the air. All eyes are on how diplomatic negotiations will navigate through perilous skies. Will peace emerge from the ashes of conflict, or will old wounds fester amidst rising tensions? Something is brewing, and change is on the horizon. In the shadow of escalating chaos, Russian officials vowed retaliation against saboteurs targeting civilians. Bryansk refuses to yield to Kyiv's relentless pressure. Late September unveiled shocking footage from Ukrainian forces, capturing a rare Mi-8 transport helicopter, a Russian Air Force Titan, obliterated mid-air by an FPV drone's merciless strike. What shadowy forces are unleashing this drone terror, turning skies into death traps? The crash's thunderous roar, metal twisting, smoke choking the air, echoed through the Klimovo district, a mere 12 miles from Ukraine's border. Open-source investigators smelled the unmistakable scorch of battle, pinpointing the site amid furrowed earth stained with jet fuel. Feel the ground tremble, the acrid stench lingering as rotors crumpled under relentless drone assault. Even in 2024, Bryansk became Kyiv's prime target, its heartland pierced by unseen threats. Picture the tension in October last year, when Ukrainian armed forces revealed their boldest hit yet. A massive ammunition depot near Karachiv erupted in flames, guarded poorly by Russian lines. They stockpiled tons of North Korean artillery shells, missiles, glide bombs, all exposed like forgotten relics to the bitter autumn chill. The General Staff's alert painted a picture of chaos. Directorate of the Ministry of Defense in Bryansk. Arsenal hoarded munitions for missiles, artillery from North Korea, glide bombs. Much stored openly. Explosions rocked the territory. Authorities sealed roads near the site. Combat results still updating. Such strikes cripple Russia's logistics, slashing invaders' might on every front. The tactile heat of blasts wavered in the night, debris scattered like broken promises. Since then, Bryansk endures wave after wave of similar assaults, growing fiercer by the day. Governor Bagoma's words drip with fury, claiming strike volume tripled. More than ever before. These Ukrainian acts reveal their fascist core. He's no longer shielding the illusion of safety in Russia. Admitting hardened truths under pressure, his rhetoric fails to mask the crumbling facade. Yet, in this vulnerability, what twisted motives drive Kyiv deeper into the void? And if Poland's stand unnerves Putin's path, will Bryansk's humiliations force Russia's iron grip to shatter? The air hums with unanswered dread, a summit teetering on the edge of collapse. Across the turbulent backdrop of ongoing conflict, Russian officials are struggling to uphold the narrative that their homeland remains a bastion of safety and security. Governor Bagomaz recently declared that the number of attacks from Ukraine has surged, tripling, in fact. His words echo a growing desperation. The facade of invulnerability is cracking. The reality is mounting. The Ukrainian forces continue their strikes, transforming the narrative spun by the Kremlin into dust. This admission, sourced from a high-ranking official, signals a shift. The populace is slowly awakening to the truths concealed beneath layers of propaganda. Fear and frustration are brewing among the Russian people, and Kyiv aims to leverage this. By exposing the reality of war to the citizens of Russia, the Ukrainian government seeks to shake the very foundations of Kremlin's power. What better way to dismantle a regime than to sow the seeds of discontent among its people? Putin's fixation on the Donbas region isn't new. It is a carryover from his earlier aggressive ambitions against Ukraine that began in 2014 with the illegal annexation of Crimea. Even then, Donbas was a prime target, and his obsession has only intensified with the ongoing war. A critical question arises: what lies behind this persistent focus on a single region? Delving deeper into the significance of Donbas, we uncover its historical roots. The term Donbas derives from Donetsk Basin, a name that signifies its industrial strength. This name alone reflects the region's strategic importance. Throughout history, Donbas has been a vital economic zone. One that offers lucrative resources and production capabilities. As we explore the intricate layers of this conflict and its implications, it becomes clear that the struggle for Donbas is not merely about territorial control. It embodies a quest for power, identity, and ultimately, survival. Each attack, each declaration from officials, serves to pull back the curtain on the realities faced by ordinary citizens. What emerges is a complex interplay of fear, resistance, and the potentially explosive anger of a populace long kept in the dark. In a shocking twist, the very actions that Moscow might consider as strengthening its position could paradoxically be the sparks that ignite a fire of rebellion among its citizens. With every missive from the Kremlin about the continued onslaught from Ukraine, the questions arise: how much longer can the Russian public be manipulated? What happens when the cries for change drown out the state-controlled narratives? The stakes are higher than ever, as the balance of power hangs precariously upon the edge of this blade. In a world on edge, a bold gamble could reshape history. Picture this: U.S. President Trump attempts to broker peace between Russia and Ukraine with an unprecedented meeting in Hungary. But there's a twist. As preparations take shape, one adversary looms large: Poland. They've declared they will intercept and arrest Russian President Vladimir Putin if he dares to enter their airspace. This unexpected defiance puts the entire summit at risk. Just weeks prior, Poland had reported Russian drones intruding into its territory, igniting a fierce response. Now, as tensions intensify, Foreign Minister Radoslav Sikorski issues a stark warning: if Putin flies over Poland, he faces arrest. The weight of his words is palpable, underscoring the mounting uncertainty surrounding Putin's journey. What routes remain for the Russian leader? Flying over Ukraine is out of the question. Ukrainian forces would be ready and waiting. The next possibility lies in Slovakia or Romania, yet both nations are allies of NATO and the EU, complicating matters. Romania has explicit obligations under international law, marking it an unlikely haven for Putin's flight. Meanwhile, should he consider a detour through Turkey, while it is not an ICC signatory, it remains a NATO member, again placing him in peril. As the clock ticks down, whispers grow louder: how far will nations go to protect international justice? Will Hungary, a key player offering a safe landing, endorse such a controversial visit? In the shadows, speculations swirl. What if Poland's resolute stance influences others? And as Russia decries Poland's actions, calling them terrorist acts, hypocrisy is laid bare. Not long ago, Russian drones had breached Polish airspace without consequence. the stakes are monumental. If Trump's meeting with Putin is to proceed, it must navigate an unprecedented minefield of political implications. The International Criminal Court, ICC, looms large over this saga, insisting that member states comply with arrest warrants. But as Sikorski has made clear, Poland is steadfast. Failure to recognize this reality will not absolve Putin's threats. The buzz of conflict crackles in the air. Each aircraft's hum signifies paths filled with potential peril. Will Putin risk entering Polish skies? If he does, he may be met not with a welcome, but with handcuffs. The lines between diplomacy, justice, and defiance blur, crafting a narrative rich with tension and intrigue. As we dive deeper, we uncover startling truths about the ICC's reach and the essence of global accountability. Stay tuned as we reveal just how high the stakes are in this international chess game, with peace balanced precariously on a knife's edge. Summary: in a high-stakes bid for peace, President Trump plans a meeting with Putin in Hungary, but Poland threatens to arrest the Russian leader if he violates its airspace. The implications for international law and the potential for a dramatic standoff loom large as nations assess their roles in this unfolding conflict. In our previous discussion, key cities like Pokrovsk, Kramatorsk, and Sloviansk build upon Ukraine's defensive investments in Donbas. These urban fortresses, highlighted by reports from Novaya Gazeta and Current Time, make launching counteroffensives an uphill struggle for Kiev. Imagine the roar of artillery echoing through dense fog, the acrid scent of gunpowder clinging to damp earth. What if this region's unyielding terrain hides a secret weapon that could turn the war's tide, or crumble under Russia's unyielding assault? Could Ukraine's fortified Donbas stand as an indomitable wall forever? Picture soldiers' boots sinking into mud-laden trenches, where every step carries the weight of history, and the hum of drones overhead sends shivers down spines. Now, envision these bastions expanding into something far greater. Along with these strongholds, spreading fortifications form what experts call the fortress belt. Russia sees its collapse as the endgame for Ukraine's resilient defense. A publication from The Conversation, released in August, maps this barrier stretching roughly 31 miles. It arcs northward from Sloviansk in Donetsk to the southern limits near Kostiantynivka. Tensions rise in this high-stakes chessboard. The source cites a Russian outlet, URA, dubbing the Donetsk fortress belt Ukraine's final major barricade. Beyond it, analysts warn Kiev lacks ready defenses towards Zaporizhia and the Dnipropetrovsk areas. Without this line, Russian forces could surge straight to the Dnipro River's edge. Take it with caution, a pro-Russian voice might exaggerate. Yet, preserving this belt remains critical for Ukraine's survival. Why such urgency? Ukraine transformed it into a deadly maze for invaders. Feel the sharp chill of barbed wire, the faint metallic tang of anti-tank barriers. Deep trenches scar the landscape like ancient wounds, echoing soldiers' whispered fears. Vast minefields lie silent, ready to erupt in chaos. Ukrainian drones buzz incessantly above, their electronic eyes scanning for Russian movements with predatory focus. Since Russia's 2014 incursion, Ukraine fortified relentlessly. A cold breeze carries distant shouts, heavy machinery rumbling as layers of steel and earth fortifications build resilience. Proven effective, these have exacted a brutal toll. Russia's toll nears astonishing heights. Sources from Ukraine's Ministry of Defense report over 1.13 million losses since the war's onset. Vast percentages likely stem from Donbas clashes, where assaults batter defenses in vain. Claiming Donbas would dismantle these impediments. Imagine reduced troop drains in future pushes, a strategic victory that could accelerate Russia's march. Clearing pathways through central Ukraine promises swifter gains, unhindered by this reinforced obstacle standing in the way. As Kirill Martynov, editor-in-chief of a prominent outlet, observes, the demands for Ukraine to surrender the last Donetsk fragments are untenable. They jeopardize military posture, locking Kiev into a vulnerable position. Rhetoric sharpens. Would yielding this land humiliate Ukraine's warriors, who bled to hold the line? An unexpected twist looms, if Russia seizes control. Might Ukraine adapt with even fiercer resolve, turning retreat into revenge? Or will the belt's fall expose weaknesses, forcing a painful reckoning? Anticipation builds as winds shift. What bombshells await in Martinov's full analysis? Could overlooked strategies redefine the Donbass defense? Stay tuned for the unveiling. In a world where the stakes has never been higher, U.S. President Trump is on a daring quest for peace between Ukraine and Russia. His boldest move yet? A face-to-face meeting with Vladimir Putin in Hungary. Yet lurking behind this diplomatic endeavor is a massive roadblock, Poland. The nation has taken a hardline stance, declaring it will intercept Putin's plane if he dares to approach its airspace. The political tension runs thick as Poland warns that Putin might be arrested under a warrant from the International Criminal Court. The stakes could not be higher, and the repercussions of this situation could unleash a whirlwind of international chaos. Just over a month after a troubling incident involving Russian drones entering its airspace, Poland has firmly closed its skies to Russia. This means that not only military aircraft are excluded, Putin himself risks being captured if he dares to fly over Polish territory. Radoslaw Sikorski, Poland's foreign minister, unambiguously stated that even the most independent of courts wouldn't shield Putin should he attempt to pass. Isn't it shocking that a major world leader could be forced from the skies by a smaller nation? Sikorski's comments raise critical questions. If Poland is a no-fly zone for Putin, how could he possibly reach Hungary? Flying over Ukraine would mean certain doom for him, as Ukrainian defenses would target him immediately. Slovakia, too, presents a challenge. To arrive there from Russia, he'd need to cross Polish or Ukrainian airspace. And what about Romania and Serbia? While they could potentially seem like alternatives, the implications for Putin's safety are dire. Would they dare to defy the ICC warrant? Romanians and Bulgarians might hesitate, especially with Poland's hard stance echoing through international channels. Yet the EU's recent directive gives member nations the power to choose. With a ban on Russian flights still in effect, will they allow a Russian leader in their skies if it could lead to long-sought peace talks? Or has the drama escalated to a point where calculations of safety and legality are secondary? As speculation ensues, it's crucial to remember that this isn't just theater. The implications of this meeting resonate far beyond just two leaders shaking hands. The winds of change could ripple through the fabric of Europe itself. While Hungary has assured Putin of safety within its borders, the real challenge lies in getting him there in the first place, with growing international pressures mounting higher and higher. As we probe deeper into the situation, we uncover the complex web of international laws and the ramifications of Putin's potential arrest. The ICC, stationed in The Hague, is a powerful entity, armed with jurisdiction over some of the gravest crimes against humanity. With 125 nations, including Poland, acknowledging its authority, the call for accountability hangs heavy in the air. But with the prospect of arrest looming, the question remains, what will happen if Putin attempts to defy these laws? The tension is palpable. One wrong move could ignite a flame that engulfs the region in turmoil. If Sikorski's warnings are taken seriously, we could witness the extraordinary spectacle of a nation holding its ground against one of the world's most formidable leaders. What does this mean for the future of Trump's quest for peace, and how might it affect the fragile balance of power in Europe? In the heart of a world torn by conflict, a shocking revelation shakes the foundations of geopolitics: the precious minerals beneath the Donbass region. With an estimated worth of up to $1.8 trillion, this land is more than just a battlefield, it's a treasure chest of rare earth elements essential for modern technology. How much longer can the world overlook these hidden riches while tensions rise? The Donbass was significant long before the crisis escalated in 2022. Reports reveal that between 2014 and 2020, the ongoing conflict cost Ukraine a staggering $14.6 billion annually, leading to cumulative losses of around $102 billion. But why is Putin so fixated on this region? It's not merely about economic damage to Ukraine, it's about power, resources, and survival. Ukraine hosts as much as 5% of the world's critical raw materials. This includes 19 million tons of graphite and a significant portion of Europe's lithium and titanium reserves. However, the heart of this mineral wealth lies within Donbass, estimated to contain 40% of Ukraine's critical resources, making it a focal point of Russian ambition. As the clock ticks, the United States recognizes the urgency of this untapped potential. By signing an agreement to establish a reconstruction investment fund, they aim not just to rebuild Ukraine but also to capitalize on its mineral assets post-war. The stakes are high, and the battle for control of these resources intensifies, raising the question, can Ukraine safeguard its treasures amid the chaos? But it's not just Ukraine's fate hanging in the balance. The conflict threatens to destabilize the entire region. With Putin's aggressive strategies and the potential for escalation, could the world face an even greater crisis? This is more than a war, it's a global chess game with lives at stake. As we dive deeper into these dynamics, the future of not just a region, but the entire global economy may hang in the balance. Can diplomacy rise above greed, or will the desire for dominance dictate the course of history? As we explore these unfolding events, the international stage brims with tension, expectations, and an urgent quest for answers. A simmering storm looms, casting shadows on the prospects for peace in a region rich with history and potential. What path will nations choose as they confront reality? Keep watching, because the answers to these questions might change everything. In a tense geopolitical landscape, an ambitious chapter unfolds as the U.S. president seeks to broker peace between Ukraine and Russia. This time, the stakes are raised with a proposed direct meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin in Hungary, a country nestled within the heart of Europe. But how will Putin even get there? The meeting is fraught with complications. Poland, firmly asserting its stance, has declared that it will intercept Putin's jet if he dares cross its airspace. Their message is clear: Russia's president does not have permission to fly over Poland. The war crimes warrants hanging over Putin, issued by the International Criminal Court, further complicate the situation, making him a potential target for arrest. Poland's foreign minister, Radosław Sikorski, recently made headlines by issuing a stark warning: should Putin attempt to fly over Poland, he faces arrest under an ICC warrant. This ominous statement was laden with implications, suggesting that Poland is prepared to take action. "I can't guarantee an independent Polish court wouldn't order the government to seize such a plane," Sikorski proclaimed during a radio interview. As tensions flare, the question emerges: if Poland is a no-fly zone for Putin, what alternatives does he have? Ukraine is obviously out of the question. Any attempt to traverse its airspace would invite an aggressive response. Slovakia is similarly unfeasible, as access would require flying over Poland or Ukraine first. The southeast offers slight hope via Romania and Serbia, but restrictions remain. Romania is a EU member, and Serbia would pose similar challenges. So where does that leave Putin? All routes seem perilous, but there's a twist: Turkey might offer a longer, less dangerous passage, yet its NATO membership complicates matters. Even this alternative is riddled with risk and speculation surrounding how these nations would react. Poland has made its position unequivocally clear: if Putin crosses our border, he'll be arrested. Russia's response has been one of indignation, with Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov dubbing Poland's stance a terroristic act. Lavrov's claim is rather hypocritical. Just days earlier, Russia had violated Polish airspace with drones. But amidst these rising tensions, the backdrop reveals a more profound narrative. The impending meeting between Trump and Putin is not merely about politics, it's a chess game with global implications. The stakes are high, and the world watches with bated breath as this potentially game-changing encounter inches closer to reality. Now, returning to the topic of the International Criminal Court, which stands at the heart of Sikorski's statements, what exactly does the ICC signify for Putin? The ICC is an international court based in The Hague, tasked with addressing grave crimes like genocide and war crimes. The court's authority hinges on the compliance of its member states, which includes Poland. Thus, the pressure mounts on Poland. Its obligation under the Rome Statute makes the prospect of Putin's arrest far more than a mere threat. Do they truly possess the political will to act? And what would such an action ripple through the international community if it escalated? As discussions of peace persist, will Hungary indeed provide safe haven for Putin, despite uncertainties? Or will the specter of arrest loom larger than the desire for diplomacy? Only time will tell how this precarious situation unfolds. Imagine a world where a tense meeting between powerful leaders could either ignite a spark of hope or plunge nations into chaos. The air hangs heavy with anticipation as U.S. President Trump sets his sights on a bold initiative, a peace summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Hungary. But a massive obstacle looms on the horizon. Poland, a neighboring nation, has drawn a line in the sand, threatening to intercept Putin's plane should he dare to breach its airspace. With the fate of this summit hanging in the balance, Poland's foreign minister, Radoslaw Sikorski, spreads a chilling warning that echoes across the continent. "We cannot guarantee that an independent Polish court wouldn't order the government to escort his plane and hand him over," he declares, a foreboding chill running down spines in Moscow. This statement is more than just a simple caution, it sends shivers through the heart of the Kremlin, suggesting that direct action could ensue if Putin tries to fly over Polish territory. Imagine the stakes. If Poland intercepts Putin, the consequences could reverberate globally, shattering the fragile peace that the summit hopes to cultivate. But what other routes remain for the Russian leader? The map is fraught with peril. Ukraine lies directly in his path, a nation whose defenses would surely spring to life at the sight of invading Russian jets. Consider Slovakia, another neighboring country, where the skies are equally hostile as it requires flying over Poland or Ukraine. This leaves Romania and Serbia, but both present their own hurdles with airspace complications and NATO allegiances. Sikorski's statement casts a long shadow over the prospect of cooperation. If he tries to pass through Poland, he'll face the music, Sikorski warns, foreboding uncertainty that echoes loud and clear. Yet, is Poland alone in its resolve? What about Romania and Bulgaria, who also share ICC responsibilities? They're bound by the same treaties. If Poland leads the charge, could they follow suit and deny safe passage to Putin's plane? The situation teeters on a knife's edge, and the response of these nations remains a question mark in the unfolding drama. Now, imagine a twist, a sudden shift in the dynamics of international law. The European Union, having laid down a ban on all Russian aviation, finds itself pondering the implications of this summit for long-term peace. Can the potential for dialogue outweigh the tensions of law? As a spokesperson reveals, it's left to individual states whether to uphold the restrictions. Could this meeting in Hungary be a turning point leading to resolution, or a mere facade masking deeper tensions? But wait, what about Turkey? Its airspace has wide-open gates, and it could seem an ally in the shadows. However, as a NATO member and with Russia plotting its downfall, the path would be anything but secure. The landscape is fraught with diplomatic landmines that threaten to explode at any moment. As the clock ticks down, the pressure mounts. Will Putin dare to traverse hostile skies, knowing that an arrest awaits him? Resistance simmers in the air as Russia's accusations against Poland intensify. With Lavrov's words painting the Polish stance as a terrorist act. Irony drips from these claims, given Russia's recent incursions into Polish airspace. Yet, what happens if Putin shows up in Hungary? A potential ceasefire may hinge on his arrival, complicating the narrative even further. Amidst the chaos, the responsibility for Putin's fate is teetering on global politics. Who will stand on the side of justice? The foundational cracks of international law are under scrutiny, and Sikorski's resolute stance adds fuel to the fire. Putin risks arrest if he enters Poland. The world holds its breath, for the implications of this game of chess could reshape the future. As the summit draws near, nations are forced to navigate a quagmire of international obligations and national pride. The stage is set. Will it be a day of reckoning or a dawn of compassion? The final act has yet to unfold, but the stakes have never been higher. In a conflict that continues to escalate, the winds of war howl ominously over Eastern Europe. Despite the rhetoric of peace, the reality on the ground is starkly different. A striking new survey reveals that a staggering 82% of Ukraine's Russian-speaking population view the Russian Federation unfavorably. President Putin portrays himself as a savior of these communities, yet the truth is unsettling. Most individuals in these areas, particularly in the beleaguered Donbass, have no desire to be saved. As the war rages on, Russia's repeated assaults have left rampant destruction in their wake. Cities lie in ruins, their once thriving infrastructure reduced to rubble. Basic necessities, such as clean water, have become scarce. A poignant account from Luhansk paints a grim picture. The tap water is yellow and smells bad. We rely on bottled water, but it's not cheap. This sentiment echoes throughout Donetsk, where residents struggle with crippling shortages. A member of a local partisan group lamented the days when flickers of water would emerge from the taps. Now, many find their spigots dry for entire days. Even amid these dire conditions, Putin's fabrications persist. He has audaciously claimed that 4 million people have fallen victim to a fabricated genocide at the hands of Ukraine. Such bold assertions lack any substantiation, yet they continue to feed his narrative, justifying a frantic bid to seize the Donbass region. It's a desperate attempt to depict himself as a heroic figure, a knight in shining armor ready to rescue his fellow compatriots. The terrifying aspect lies not just in his misleading claims, but in the possibility that he genuinely believes these grandiose tales. As the stakes grow ever higher, the question looms larger: how far is Putin willing to go to avoid what he perceives as failure? This battle isn't merely about land, it's about securing his legacy and sustaining his vision of a resurgent Russia. With every passing day, the conflict intensifies, but the will of the people remains resolute. Will their voices be drowned out by the sounds of war, or will they rise to challenge the narrative? The future remains uncertain, teetering on the edge of peril, as Putin clings tightly to his dubious ambitions while the world watches. In the last segment, we delved into the harrowing belief that Putin holds onto his fabricated narratives about Donbass. This obsession stems from a desperate need to avoid failure that could shatter Russia's facade of strength. To lose control now would destroy his grand vision. What shocking tales drive this ruthless leader? Imagine the cold, deafening roar of war machines grinding through mud-soaked fields in Donbass. The acrid stench of gunpowder lingers in the air, mixing with the metallic tang of blood on frostbitten earth. Soldiers' boots crunch over shattered concrete, their exhausted breaths visible in the biting wind. Putin, sitting in a dimly lit Kremlin chamber, deliberately turns a blind eye to the devastation his lies have unleashed. He spins stories of genocide and eager Russian hearts in the region. Yet, these tall tales veil the true carnage: ravaged cities, lives torn apart, children screaming through smoke-filled nights. He pushes onward, feeding thousands of his own troops into the merciless flames of his Donbass dreams. Is this sacrifice worth the power grab, or a hollow echo of a crumbling empire? The question hangs heavy: will Putin ever claim the region he's invested so much in? Whispers of compromise swirl like dust storms over battle lines. Rumors suggest Ukraine might grudgingly cede parts of Donbass in a forced peace pact with Russia. On October 19, United States President Donald Trump floated a provocative idea. He hinted that Ukraine could redraw the map, leaving Russia in control of most of Donbass. From the confines of Air Force One, Trump told reporters they can negotiate something later on down the line. Think about it. Russia already grips over 80% of the region's soil. Such a deal would solidify that grip forever. According to The Guardian, Trump pressed this during a tense White House sit-down with Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky. Sweat beading on brows and a room thick with unspoken tensions. Or perhaps Trump's words aimed to freeze the front lines temporarily, not etch permanent borders. When probed if he'd urged Ukraine to surrender Donbass to Russia, Trump evaded directly. Confusion reigns. What does the U.S. president truly envision for the embattled area? Now, turbulence escalates with Trump's summit in Hungary sidelined. On October 21, Trump revealed the U.S. scrapped the talks with Putin, calling it pointless. An unidentified European diplomat, quoting Reuters, cut to the chase. I guess the Russians wanted too much. It clicked for Americans: no deal in Budapest. This shift might mean the U.S. views frozen lines as obsoleted. Zelensky, with steel in his voice, slammed the notion of handing over Donbass. He declared Ukraine would never yield the land willingly. Picture leaders in heated phone calls, voices rising over the hum of distant jets. Emotions flare, desperation, defiance, the weight of history pressing down. Yet, does this unraveling of diplomatic threads leave Donbass dangling in limbo, vulnerable to more bloodshed? As fingers hover over phones and world leaders exchange icy glares, what unseen pressures will crush the next fragile hope for peace? President Trump cancelled the summit with Putin in Hungary, deeming it pointless. An EU diplomat told Reuters the Russians demanded too much. Americans realized no deal was possible there. Yet, Ukraine would never surrender the Donbass willingly. Zelensky made that clear when talks of ceding the region to Russia emerged in August. Imagine the chilling winds of betrayal sweeping across Ukrainian soil. Can you feel the icy grip of Putin's obsession tightening? Will Zelensky's unbreakable vow against leaving the Donbass doom Ukraine to eternal war? Or is Trump's suggestion to trade away over 80% of the region the shocking key to peace? The tension builds. What if handing the Donbass opens Russia's claws to deeper conquest? Zelensky roared, "We will not abandon the Donbass." It is impossible. Picture the armored roar of tanks rumbling through fortified hills. The earthy stench of trenches dug deep into the ground. Zelensky warned, keeping the Donbass under Russian control creates a launch pad. A bridge for future onslaughts. If we flee our defenses today, our elevations, our strongholds, we expose pathways. In years, Putin gains easy access to Zaporizhia, to Dnipro, to Kharkiv. These territories loom large in his dark strategy. These regions are vital shields for Ukraine. As crucial as halting Putin's Donbass grab. Vibrant cities with echoing sirens and the metallic tang of fear in the air. Strategic assets where boots crunch over frost-covered earth. Protecting them prevents Russian dominance. Ukraine's constitution forbids its leader from sacrificing land without cause. Zelensky lacks power to sign away territory. Thus, yielding the Donbass to Russia is unthinkable. An absolute blockade. Putin will wage war relentlessly. His mania drives him. Like a ravenous beast clawing through shadows. Right now, Putin's flop to seize the Donbass on schedule marks a catastrophic Russian blunder in this war. Echoes of failed battles linger in the smoky haze of defeat. Many more errors plague his invasion. We've detailed every Russian failure in a 19-minute video. Dive into how Putin fumbled the war. But here's the jaw-dropping twist: despite Zelensky's iron will, Trump's whispers of concession could fracture alliances. Secret routes through Turkey? Balkan detours to avoid NATO jaws? Putin might slink toward Hungary anyway. His arrogance blinds him, but what if a single wrong turn sparks global chaos? Will one nation's arrest trigger the ultimate reckoning, exposing Putin's hollow empire to the world's horrified gaze? The finale hangs by a thread.